Hello everybody, welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James. Did you miss the deadline?
Yes. Let's just get into it. Kind of sort of missed the deadline. What time did the games kick off? 4:30, wasn't it?
Well, you don't know, do you?
Well, it was kind of a bit of a busy Sunday, and I ended up planning my transfers, opening up the website, checking that I could afford my transfers, and seeing that Bukayo Saka had a yellow flag. So waiting to see if I could get some information about whether or not he was fit, because otherwise I'd have bought Odegaard. And got distracted. One of the kids started asking me to do something, and then checked, and it'd gone 3 o'clock. I was like, oh, okay.
So all you were going to do was Saka to Odegaard anyway?
No. I was buying
Saka.
You're
better off missing the deadline.
No. I was going to sell Erling Haaland and buy Harry Kane. I was going to sell Jack Grealish and buy Saka if someone had said to me that he was fit.
Oh, so you didn't already own Saka?
No.
I see.
And I was going to sell Isak and buy Alvarez to cover off Haaland.
Okay.
So 3 moves that probably cost me fucking, I don't know, 20 points.
Load of points.
25 points. So we ended
Did you have
up
2 free transfers as well?
I had 2 frees. Yeah. I had 2 frees. So it ended up being a bit of a disappointment, just the timing on Sunday. But it felt a really, even watching the West Ham game, irrelevant day. I felt like that on the last day of the season a few times now. When you get there, it's not a sense of achievement; it's a sense of relief.
What day? It's over.
Kinda, yeah. It didn't feel so much like a celebration of the end of the season and try and like claw and keep fighting. Because I thought, to be honest with you, I dropped to 120k or something. I don't have it in front of me, but a lot. Big
Gutted
drop.
that's happened.
I'm not that bothered, but I thought if I did nothing, I'd still finish top 100k. But the drop was big. 50k drop in 1 week was huge.
Yeah,
I got like 26 points.
How many points did you score?
26, 27. I want to pull it up on my screen, but it's still charging. Let's find it on
26 points you got, mate.
Yeah, which is pretty bad. But I had Salah captain. The only thing I would say is that had I bought Harry Kane, I wouldn't have captained him. I'd have still captained Mo Salah.
Okay, fair enough.
I would have still captained Mo Salah. That was my plan all along. But like so many people, like a lot of no-shows, right? No Trippier.
No, he did play, mate. Own goal.
No points for Trippier, I should say. No Grealish, no John Stones. Obviously, Luke Shaw we knew about. No Erling Haaland.
Callum Wilson was a sub for you. Mitoma was a sub for you.
Yeah. So it ended up, like, this is the thing with the whole last week anyway that we spoke about very briefly. I mentioned yesterday with Fergie and Paul when they came on. Go and have a look at that episode. We work as engaged managers, and I'm at the lower end of the engaged spectrum, Mrs. Deadline. We plan for these doubles, and it just, the last week and a half didn't play out at all because as soon as City had won the title, we were in rotation central, and there was no advantage to be had from steaming into Brighton, Man City, and kind of Man United didn't do as badly because of the clean sheets last week, but well, apart from when Felix lost, took that one out. But yeah, it didn't feel like that steaming into the doubles right at the end paid off for anyone. Maybe a Stupinan owners or something. I don't know.
No, not many. I mean, it wasn't a high, particularly 37 wasn't massively high scoring. And obviously 38 wasn't as well, because in terms of starters and stuff, sure, there'd been people who would have been engaged to the team news coming up to 3 o'clock and would have made relevant transfers. But there's a lot of people who wouldn't have been, and there still would have been people who ummed and ahed over people like Mitoma, for example, is going to start, is he not? Callum Wilson, another one. You've got both of them, right?
Yeah.
So you won't be alone in not having 11 players.
Hesitated on Haaland just because he wasn't starting. It's that fear of 20 minutes off the bench can still.
The information
damage.
was out. I don't understand why you didn't wait, because I messaged you and told you Haaland's not starting.
Yeah, I know, but that was earlier in the day. That was like 11 in the morning.
It was like 1:30 or something.
Nah, it was early in the morning. It was definitely before lunch.
Depends
lunch.
what time you eat lunch, doesn't it?
That's also true. But yeah, I was just debating Haaland to Kane, or if Haaland comes off the bench, could he still do some damage? Which a lot of people have been in that mindset as well.
Yeah, it felt like everybody it kind of took the decision away from many people. So I was umming and ahhing about going Haaland to Kane anyway. And the closer it got and the more I'd thought about it, the more I thought, if I get him in, I'm going to captain him as well, which was... I'd felt that Mo Salah was the best choice, but Jurgen Klopp's comments Friday morning spooked. And I think, judging by the Liverpool team, it was right to have been spooked. It seemed like the information prior to deadline was that Mo Salah would start, but I was concerned enough to think, is this a 55-minute job or something like that? Whereas with Harry, and all the speculation that was going round, it was like, I know he's getting me 85 here, minimum, unless he gets injured during the game.
Yeah.
Because the only way he's not playing the full match is if Ryan Mason decides to give him like his own round of applause at the end of the game or something like that, which he could well have done and didn't. So
like a send-off, you mean?
Yeah, I think and there wasn't one, just to clarify. So it just kind of fell in simplistically to captain Harry for me, and that's the difference between our weeks. Is I bought Harry Kane and captained Harry Kane. It's 32 points, isn't it?
Yeah.
I beat you by 30 this week.
Oh, wow, okay.
It's a shame you beat me by a lot else for the rest of the season as well, in fairness. So it was 56 points for me. The only other returner I had was Mo Salah himself. 5 points, that's it. 32 Kane, 5 Salah, and just bits else. Oh, Trent's assist, but also conceded 4. So for a 4 point, I took -4. Also, so Jack Grealish for Martin Odegaard, who feels like he was the only Arsenal player at the weekend not to return. I think him and Thomas Partey were the only 2 starters who didn't actually return in the game. So how have I missed that? God knows. And it would have been Saka for me, but it was the same. It was enough doubt. I was like, well,
yeah.
I was sitting in the bar in Leeds. Shout out to FPL Rhinos who looked after me and my dad prior to the game. And I'm sitting there, and it was about, I don't know, 2:30, 20 to 3. I was like, just do it. I can't be bothered with this. I'm having a beer. I'm having a good time. I can't bother with it. Just did it.
Yep.
Done. And then it got to about 3:30, and I was like, I'm not sure if I saved it. I knew that I'd made the transfers, but I didn't know if I've had that before where it's the -56 special, isn't it? I've made transfers, but I've not saved the team and stuff. And then and then I never looked till like about 7 o'clock at night once I got out of Leeds, and got well away from the ground and stuff. So, yeah, I finished 220k-ish, I think. So I think it ended up being a 3rd best rank I'd had during the course of the season. So I probably have to remember that I was around, it was the week before the Rashford triple captaincy, I dropped outside the top million. So I'm quite happy with that in the end. 224k is where I finished.
How do you feel like season's ended now?
It's done, isn't it? I've been waiting to end for weeks, haven't I, as a Tottenham fan.
Dragging.
So, yeah, I knew around about game week 33 that I couldn't catch you.
Yeah.
You hadn't wild carded yet, and I knew that you were going to end up going for similar players that I already had and stuff. So, I knew, therefore, that top 100k was going to be well out of reach as well. So, there'll be people listening who've got far better ranks who going, that's terrible, James. And there'll be people miles behind me as well going, I think that's all right, James. And I think we learnt again that this is getting harder.
It's definitely getting harder. I think as much as the last week, like I've just mentioned, petered out into more of relief and just getting to the end, I feel like I've learned more this season than previous seasons about playing the game. I think this season I've made way more safe and obvious transfer picks.
You've benefited from that.
Played the ownership a little bit more. There's a few players that I should have got on earlier in the season when clearly everyone was and the trends were there. I think Almiron jumps to mind. Saliba, I didn't own at all, jumps to mind as a good cheap player. There were a few that people were going towards later in the season. I didn't jump on Ollie Watkins quick enough, but if I'd followed the herd a little bit when the signs were pretty clear, I think I could have really kicked on, and I think that's definitely helped. So I feel ready. I understand my game a little bit more than I did at the end of previous seasons. I feel like, and it's been fairly successful. It's been pretty.
It's your best FPL season, mate. Celebrate it.
I don't know if it is.
Yeah, well, it's got to be, hasn't it? You ain't got nothing to write home about previously.
No, I feel like there was another 100k season, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, no one can remember it.
how much I care.
Suj doesn't even know where to find his game week history from previous.
No,
Try game week history, sweetheart.
Yeah, I know. Where's the points bit gone?
Do I need to find this for you?
No, it's disappeared from me. I'm on a
Suj, you never did it before.
Game week history. So my previous highest ever rank. Yeah, last season, 113.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you didn't even beat your best?
No, 123. Close enough, mate. But
Was that the first deadline you missed all season?
2517. I think it was, I scored more points this season, though, than last season.
Yeah, but I mean, this is relevant. I think this was my second highest points total as well. And it's, I don't know, fourth or fifth best rank or something.
Yeah,
so
steaming into the
extra doubles and stuff.
Of course.
But then we lost a whole game week, essentially, with game week 7. Obviously, there was no fixtures. It's basically 37 game weeks instead. So that narrative can be thrown either way.
Yeah.
It's getting harder because there's more good players out. There's more relevant information. I think things like you saying you understand more about ownership and stuff. Things like live FPL net and things like that make it easily accessible to have an understanding of what the ownership is of players around you at certain ranks. Planning tools such as FPL Team in terms of working ahead with your transfers. I'm sure there'll be more new content next year as well. The relevant sources out there and info. I mean, we had a discussion yesterday about how many, say, the top 1,000 in Sky did we think were not listening to Sky Fantasy content. I mean, how many of the top, I don't know, 500k would you say now in FPL are taking in no content?
No content. I'd say...
Whether it's written, audio, video.
And I'm only going to say that because of language as well. Whereas there's a lot of players in countries where maybe there isn't as much content in whatever language it might be. So I'd say a third to a half, I'd say. But a half, I think, might be consuming
But then,
content.
so you're saying there's at least sort of 250k who like really engaged. I mean,
yeah, I think so.
How many subscribers has Andy got? Old Slippers?
It's a lot, though.
It's about that, isn't it?
Yeah. It's north of 250,000.
Yeah. So... there's an understanding, isn't there? So,
and I had 4 game weeks this season where I got into the 100 club. 4 plus a 99 plus a 96. There was like 3 or 4 game weeks in the 80s. I feel like there was a lot of monster game weeks this week where people did really well, helped by if Haaland's going off, then it makes life a lot easier. But I've never had a season where there's been so many big game weeks either.
Highlight of the season? Was there one?
Highlight of the season. No, I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of whether or not it's when I've played a chip.
Probably. Did you Rashford triple captaincy? Yeah. I think like hitting that because the Sadio Mane 1 point, a famous one. It can go wrong for you. So I think when you hit a chip, nice.
Yeah, the timing of my chips in the second half. And when I navigated through the 26-27 without having to use any chips, that actually worked out quite well for me. I didn't lose any ground. In fact, I made a little bit of ground. That's probably the best period of the season for me, for sure.
I think mine's got to be 2 Tottenham moments. So having Harry Kane for the moment when he broke Tottenham's goal scoring record against City.
Your FPL team.
Yeah, I was very quietly, I was adamant that he was staying in there till he broke that record. Very quietly adamant about that. Although I'd also say probably taking him out when I wildcarded, considering his consistency. I mean, he's scored 26 different games this season, Suj, which is a Premier League all-time record.
Yeah, I'm sure I saw he was at 7 points behind Haaland at the end of the season. 7 or 8?
Not many. You have to factor in that
points,
Haaland played a lot less minutes in the end.
True, but this perma-captain thing on Haaland, I mean, if you perma-captain Kane throughout the entire season, I know it doesn't work like that because...
No, because you get people off the bench for replacing Haaland and stuff, wouldn't you?
Spikes and...
for every time Haaland didn't play a game, you'd have the vice-captaincy, wouldn't you? So there's certainly,
I get that.
There would be a difference.
It's not as big a difference as you might have thought, let's say, at Christmas time that it was going to be.
The other highlight for me is Captain Harry on Sunday.
Yep.
And not bottling it and going, it's Tottenham, I don't want to do it, and actually enjoying it. And so obviously I was at Leeds, so I wasn't focusing on what was happening elsewhere. So, but I was obviously conscious aware that I'd captained Harry. So 2 minutes in, you've got the return. And then I was right near the front where the goals were in the second half to know I knew he'd got the assist for Porro's goal. And obviously when he goes through, he's going to score for the third one as well. So yeah, I guess that probably. captaincy of a player you love. Might be his last ever game for Tottenham. Was a nice little ending to the season for me.
Let's go through some of these games, and then we'll get into some of the questions that we may have had on Twitter for the season wrap up. A few bonkers ones in there, and a few unexpected results, but ultimately, the two or three things that were left to play for kind of petered out. Obviously, Villa scored quite early in their game, so whilst they were ahead, you kind of sort of know, well, you're not going to be catching them. So that Europa Conference League spot was wrapped up by Villa fairly easily. The relegation battle was a funny one. It's obviously Leicester going ahead against us, and a well-taken goal by Harvey Barnes. I still felt that it was going to be a disappointment for Leicester because Everton were going to come back and do what they did. They kept flashing up the highlights from the Everton game.
It was interesting. Congratulations to Villa on 7th and Everton on staying up. It was interesting. So a lot of Everton fans outside the ground afterwards who were like, we've got to make sure we're not in this position next season and stuff. And I was thinking, these interviews absolutely could have been 12 months ago.
Well, they were.
Exactly the same.
You've staved off relegation. You're going to be doing it again next season. Leicester fans, watching the game on TV, you could tell from about 65 minutes, when they were 2-0 up, from that point on, the crowd didn't get behind the team. It was like all I could hear on the TV was West Ham fans.
There's nothing you can do. You're just relying on the other game, aren't you?
Yeah, so. It just all you could hear was West Ham fans singing, "We're going to Prague, or I don't know,
Prague,
Wembley." We're going to Wembley. But it was
tell me your
Prague
fans are not singing. We're going to
Prague something. I couldn't hear what they were saying. 2-0 and you're going down. Say hello to Millwall. It was all I could hear.
That's good.
All I could hear was West Ham fans singing, and I felt for Leicester because, you're 2-0 up, and you've done everything in your power, and it's out of your control, and that's why it sucks to leave it in someone out of your hands.
Leicester clearly didn't go down because of what happened on Sunday.
No, of course not. There was a lot more throughout the season that happened, so it kind of all petered out. By the time once Everton had gone 1-0 up and Villa were up against Brighton, I thought it's going to finish like this.
Everton fans will probably tell you they were shitting themselves towards the end. You see how many 10 minutes added on at Goodison Park? The reaction when that board goes up, you must think, oh my God, 10 minutes. It's psychological, isn't it? Yeah. You prep yourself for the 5 or 6. I don't think you prep yourself for 10, do you?
No. Arsenal managed to win 5-0 at home to Wolves. We thought Arsenal would win. I didn't think they'd win by this much. But they wanted to round the season off well in front of their own fans, and they did. I don't know. Wolves. I don't know if there is this kind of narrative of we've talked about for a couple of weeks where things are not right.
Yeah, something's not.
And so what's going to happen?
There were some murmurings prior to the game that Lopetegui had agreed that he was going to stay on, but he was very non-committal in his interview afterwards and stuff as well. I think he probably will stay, but I think we should have a consciousness, subject to whatever they do in the summer, that they might be in trouble next year, actually. Neves is probably going to go, and he's their outstanding player. I think that it's going to be really important for them to see what they do in the transfer window. And the suggestions are, part of the reason Lopetegui might be unhappy is there might be a restriction in terms of the spending this summer. So whatever they get in for Neves, I don't think they're in FFP trouble, but they've probably got to be a little bit sensible with what they do. And they definitely need investment into this team, particularly, I think, offensively. It's no surprise that I think they finished with 31 goals scored. Harry Kane got 30.
Yeah.
So you're not going to do a lot when that's sort you out. And I know they've been unlucky, like they bought Clinched, who's obviously had a long-term injury. Jimenez has regressed.
Costa coming and have any strikers. I mean, they bought Cunha. They had Cunha in as well.
Looks all right, actually. He didn't play at the weekend.
They're all right, but they didn't have Jimenez of 2 or 3 years ago where he was banging them in.
No. But even when they were really good under that first season with Nuno, when they finished with 7th, was it? Weren't huge scorers then either. No. It was a lot about their defensive record, and they were very reliant on the goals of obviously Jimenez and Diogo Jota at the time. So I think they're a team that we should be very conscious of over the summer that might struggle again next year. For Arsenal, it's going to be difficult to improve on, in fairness, what's obviously been an outstanding season. Couple of assists for Trossard, goal and assist for Jesus. I think I saw a stat. Jesus never lost when he scored, actually. It's like over 50 games now, I think. Goal for Saka, who was the guy that my original thought earlier in the week, Suj, was going to take -4 for Saka and Odegaard. Right. If Haaland was available, that was my thinking. Then once Saka was a doubt, it was just off the table to take the risk in terms of buying new. You'd obviously come to a similar conclusion.
Yeah.
Nice ending story for Granit Xhaka.
Yep.
Who scored twice, and obviously he should have got a hat-trick, actually, because he had another great chance in the game. We think he's going to buy Leverkusen. Seems like it's been agreed.
Join Xabi Alonso.
The difficulty for Arsenal will be, what I've said a few times, is in terms of improving that team. I think they realise they need depth. There's got to be a consciousness that depth is going to be, like Trossard is of a good level. Jorginho is of a good level. It's got to be players that actually can be competitive to start, which I think, particularly in the centre-back position, I think is the one who's going to be really troubling for them in terms of, can they get someone in who's going to be good enough to stand in for Saliba or Gabriel, but also probably know he's not going to be first choice, unless they were to buy someone that would be a direct replacement for Gabriel, I think, and a left footer. But then that won't fix the problem if Saliba's out again, because Kivior was a left footer who's played left back in the last couple, presumably is the stand-in now for Gabriel. It's really the understudy for Saliba. And it's the reverse problem I speak about into, Tottenham need a forward to cover for Harry Kane.
You don't think Rob Holding's the one, no?
I think Arsenal fans will tell you that Rob Holding is not the one.
Jacob Kivier's goal was a beauty from a -56. And that, when I saw that go in, I was like, that's a nice cheeky little bonus from a 4 and a bit.
Dodgy ads from Sarah as well, who played in goal, and he's not had a great season. And actually, in terms of FPL returns, he's actually still done it right. But he was arguably goalkeeper of the season last year. Very close, I think. This year, dropped off, nowhere near it. I think he's been a bit more exposed in terms of his distribution. It's another position, actually, that probably Wolves fans wouldn't have thought was a problem. Is now beginning to look like one, actually.
I think Arsenal will do some good business in the summer. I think
It sounds like the money's there to spend. They've also been linked with people like Declan Rice, but I think
Mason Mount, maybe. There's a talk about him to Man United, but I think he'd fit in really well at Arsenal.
I think getting a right-sided centre-back, or at least another cover at right-back, is particularly important. Because if they can shove it where Tommy
Ben White could play right-sided.
Yeah, exactly that. It's fine. But then you need to do something at right-back. So they've got to do something with the right-sided of defence in terms of a quality understudy, or even if it's to be a new right back, even. That's not to say remove Ben White from the team, but yeah, I guess Ben White as right-sided centre-back would be ideal cover for Saliba. They've got to do something, I think, in that area. They'll struggle, I think, to improve on the party Jorginho, and I guess if Xhaka's going, it's that position that they're going to want to fix up most, you would imagine. I think Fabio Vieira's, don't see him stepping up into that role quite yet.
Yep. Aston Villa 2, Brighton 1. So after we win the Conference League next week, another team in Claret Blue can win it next season.
Well, Jack Toner, our Burnley correspondent, would be delighted then, won't he?
They're not in it, mate.
Well, they might be. It's not to say.
The year after.
Burnley might finish 7th next year.
Next year. So keep this Claret and Blue run in the Conference League or whatever conference.
Congratulations to Villa. It's thoroughly deserved. You know, they were 17th at one point. I think it's
the mood when it was this season. Steven Gerrard was manager.
Yes, but
feels mad.
I might have this wrong, but I think it's 49 points from 25 games. I think under Emery, which
just from the tour games, mental.
That is, if you put that across the full season, you will finish top 4. And that's 25 games is a sizable chunk, right? Where it's gone beyond, this is a honeymoon period or manager bounce, right? That's really good. In a weird way, I think getting into the Conference League might be a little bit prohibitive in terms of trying to push on next year. Whereas, I think if they'd have finished 8th, you'd put them in real contention to say, can you continue this momentum playing once a week and maybe finish top 4? It's just psychological, that Thursday-Sunday gig. You know, you've done it the last few years now. It's
not easy. Yeah.
It's not, no. Villa thoroughly deserved to get that place. There's no way in the world my team would deserve to finish above them. You see the scenes for the game and stuff. Right? Probably you'd have thought it was a huge game, but it is. I think it's better as well for, I think, the league to have clubs like, and I don't mean to put them in together, Villa and Brighton, because
The
Villa are a
pretenders,
huge
as
club.
you'd call them before,
But
right?
it's a big deal for Villa fans. If you go forward 10 years, where you want to be in a position where getting into Europa League's a failure, or the Europa Conference League. Whereas obviously it's been so long. Remember, they only went down 2016 or so. That getting in there is a huge achievement. The vibe around the football club's great. It's going to be far more interesting watching Villa and Brighton in those Europa competitions next year than it would have been watching Tottenham or Chelsea, for example. It's great that those two clubs have achieved that. And Villa as a potential now for it to be the start of something. We know they'll do well in the Conference League. The manager's so well versed in terms of European competition.
As for the club, like, I never looked at Villa and thought this summer a lot of people were going to go in and try and pick up some of their players. But maybe if there was a team that wanted a striker and was going to pay big money for an Ollie Watkins, or wanted a creative player like Buendia, or come and get Jacob Ramsey or whatever. But I think because they've got European football now, they'll find it easy to keep the squad together and make a few additions as well.
Yeah, Diego Carlos at centre-back will feel like a new signing because I've barely seen him all year and he's been fit for a couple of months now. The only one I think might leave is a goalkeeper, purely on the basis that they can probably command a really good sum of money. He has been linked to a number of clubs. He's obviously a World Cup winner, Golden Glove, World Cup shagging goalkeeper winner. There's a number sniffing around Emi Martinez. I think if the value's big enough, Villa might look at that, and it might be that Villa suddenly become interested in, say, David Raya, for example, maybe even who we presume is going to be available from Brentford. Otherwise, don't see Villa being pushed into selling anyone. I think the fact that they've achieved beyond their expectations for this season means that most will want to give that another year. I think they've been, I don't want to say fortuitous with injuries, but when you look at the bench at the weekend, it looks a bit threadbare. One of the things discussed with Lee Jackson on the last time he come on COTC was the fact they've got a number of really good kids, like a number have been out on loan, like Jacob Ramsey's brother, Cameron Archer's been at Middlesbrough, and they'll get plenty of minutes in the Conference League next year, but it does become a balancing act where literally just being in that competition, you'll find you'll get more injuries and stuff.
Yep.
You really will. So a bit more depth is what Villa need, but there's every chance they'll kick on. They are capable of improving on that next season, I think.
Brighton's still pissed.
Brighton's still drunk.
That's it. That's the end of Brighton analysis. Still having a party, but why wouldn't they?
Roberto De Zerbi did not pull off the last day magic trick for me. And to be honest, once I saw the teams, I didn't, and there's no blame attached to Brighton for the team that they picked. They've achieved what they wanted to achieve, entitled to do whatever they want with the team. But I did think, yeah, Villa are definitely winning this, to be totally honest. But what a season for them. McAllister's going to go. That looks a certainty. Liverpool. And De Zerbi's comments, I'm not sure, but I think he's definitely going to go. De Zerbi's comments would suggest that Caicedo is probably going to go.
Yep.
As well. But they're already doing business. They've already James Milner, we think, is going there. They've got João Pedro in for Watford.
Yep.
There's a holding midfield player from Dortmund. Is it Damoud? Who looks like he's going to come into the club. What a surprise that Brighton have contingency plans for when their best players or their manager walk on. Like I said, if Real Madrid sacked Ancelotti and Real Madrid come in for De Zerbi, and that's not as ridiculous as it might sound, for example, then they'll know who they're getting next. They're pound for pound the best run football club in the country, and Brentford would spit it back in a second, probably not far beyond that. It'd be really interesting to see what happens with the pricing of their players next year. Like, what do you do with someone like Ferguson? It's obviously not going to be 4.5 again.
No, but maybe 5.5.
But you can't start going sevens. And
no,
I don't think
5.5. Like in a similar vein to some of the Nottingham Forest strikers or your Palace strikers, all 5.5, 6. I think he'll be in that bracket.
And Sisso, how high does that go?
Can't go more than 6.
But Matomas and March probably feel like they can go higher.
7.5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really interesting.
Eyes will really be
one.
on them for sure.
They will probably be, I think, probably what we've learned with them over this period where they've had congested fixtures, and bear in mind they're obviously going to be in Europa, rotation. It's going to be a headache. And one of the things I said to you with Brighton is, and this will be similar with Villa, but not quite to the same extent because of the quality of teams that they'll play, But Brighton fans will absolutely want Brighton to be picking close to their first team in the Europa League next year. I'm fairly certain of that. It's a potentially once in a lifetime for them. So, Brighton fans will be gutted if they go out in the group stage, for example. So they're going to treat that fairly seriously, I would think. And therefore, you will have rotation during the course of the season. But that shouldn't matter for the first 4 or 5 next year.
No. We talked about Brentford briefly there.
What
Another
a season
team that
they've
have
had
done
as well. Yeah.
their business early as well. You mentioned David Raya. They've brought a keeper in from Germany, right?
Who, I forget his name.
13 million.
But if you pop him into FBref and find players of comparison, the first name that comes up is David Raya. and these guys know what they're doing.
Yeah, it really is. So you kind of think, David Raya will be on his way out. But Brentford keep doing what they're doing. Like this time last year, we tipped him as potentially could struggle, second season syndrome. They've smashed that out of the water. Now next season, I don't think anyone's thinking they may go down and they're going to be at risk at all, really.
No, I mean, I feel like for I'm certainly not a Brighton, but for a Brighton or a Brentford to regress bad enough to be in relegation trouble, you've probably got to have a severe injury issue, or the manager changes and the new manager just doesn't work out for whatever reason. I almost fail to see Brentford being in trouble now with Thomas Frank in charge. And at some point, teams are going to start looking at him as well. But he's done an absolutely brilliant job. Another one probably won't. I mean, you could put half the managers in the league feel like they could be in contention. You can make a genuine case for in terms of manager of the league, manager of the year. Just from what we've spoken about, Arteta, Emery, De Zerbi, Thomas Frank, the team they beat at the weekend, obviously Pep Guardiola, for example. They've had a brilliant season.
Done the double over City. How many teams can say they could done that?
Mark Flecken is the goalkeeper that Brentford are getting from Freiburg, by the way. And you want him to be 4.5, but he probably won't be because of David Raya's performances this year. If David Raya leaves, we should add. Sorry, Suj, what did you say?
Well, they done the double over Man City.
I mean, look at the team City picked at the weekend is all I'd say about that. The victory at the Etihad was an outstanding achievement. And I think Thomas Frank was getting those questions after the game, was even saying as such, saying, the win at the Etihad was pretty special. This was the City team that, of players that we think would start the Champions League final, Ederson, Walker, Aki you could make a case for, Mahrez, Foden, Alvarez you can make a case for. Ederson and Walker, the only two in there you could say with certainty would start the Champions League final. Yeah. So, as a very rotated team, Aki got 2 bonus because he came off before the goal was conceded, but I don't suppose too many will have had him in their FPL teams. Having City players at the end there is a bit of a shocker. Paul was obviously saying on Sky Pod yesterday about Mahrez has kept starting. Yeah. And the returns haven't been there, unbelievably. No. If we'd all known that Mahrez was going to start, what was it, the last 4? Yeah. We'd have all bought him.
Steamed in.
We'd have all bought him.
Steamed in.
And not ended up getting the returns. Brentford played a back 5, which they commonly do against the best teams. They played a back 4 against Tottenham last week. And Mbumo and Vissa were the two that got favouritism. And Mbumo's another one where you look at it again, I think, from the outside, and you think, because of Tony's absence, he probably should really get a bit of a price hike. But that's only really justifiable because Tony's absent. So I'm not sure that he will do. And I think a lot, subject to fixtures, will be looking at him starting next season. But it's worth saying as well, don't be surprised if Brentford buy a forward. Even if they get someone in, like with a loan to view to permanent, and see how they feel sort of in January period.
Sade's loan was with a permanent option on there as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that will be.
They'll convert that to permanent.
I'm sure that will be. As I said on Sade last week, he's absolutely blisteringly quick. I'm not sure there's a fantasy asset there quite yet, though. But Brentford know what they're buying. I think there's a number of their players that will interest people this summer. Raya probably is going to leave, and most Brentford fans seem to think that at the moment. I wonder if Rico Henry is a player I really like, might get some interest. And I've already said a couple of times, I think really keep an eye out for Aaron Hickey next year, because he came in higher than the rest this year. It might go the other way around next year, where if he's in at 4.5-ish, and he probably should drop, I think he's a really interesting one starting next season.
Chelsea won, Newcastle won. Dead rubber, really, wasn't it, in the end? But Chelsea, I think, just draw a line under it. Poch has come in. They've made the announcement. start next season.
You know, Frank Lampard's won less games this season than Sean Dyche. That's Frank Lampard's spell with Everton and Chelsea.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that's pretty damning.
It's not like Sean Dyche has won every week with Everton, is it?
It's pretty damning. I'm just like, can that really be the case? Frank will still get ananother Premier League.
When Fergie was on yesterday, we should have showed him Frank Lampard's managerial record and asked him to pronounce it in his best Welsh accent. Yeah, it's a season for Chelsea to be in. Obviously, Pochettino's confirmed as announced now, and I do think he's a good appointment for Chelsea. I think one of the things I'd say for those who might not have heard it, I think Chelsea fans will need to be very, very patient for the first few months. I discussed this with Gary Mantle, our Chelsea correspondent, that 3 months in at Tottenham, we couldn't see an identity or where it was going, and then suddenly it began to click. And I think because of the sheer volume of players there will be a period of working out who he wants and who he doesn't, and he will give everybody, I think, and except for there was obviously going to have to be some departures this summer, he will give everyone a chance. There'll be a few times where you think, I can't believe he's not played him. He played well last week. It's because he wants to look at other players and stuff, and then he'll work it out and he'll start culling those that don't get involved or don't want to kind of buy into his philosophy and what he wants to do. So I think it will take a bit of time. The idea that Chelsea are suddenly going to go from this and like, Pochettino's coming in, they're going to challenge for the title next year. Like, I don't see that. I think it's worth remembering there's a lot of comparisons with the time they finished 10th and then Conte come in and won the league. But actually, in the second half of that season, after Mourinho went, they did quite well. Was it Gus Hiddink was in charge? I want to say it was. I want to they didn't lose that many games, I don't think. It can't be Gus Hiddink. Who was in charge?
It wasn't Rafa, was it?
No. In between Mourinho and Conte. Have a look for us, please, Nico. But they didn't do too badly in the second half of that season. Like when Mourinho left, they were like 16th or 15th or so. And this second half of the season has been, it's obviously just progressively got worse for Chelsea. So to lift it for them to challenge for the title next year, very difficult. I think to make a run at top four, they'd probably have to come from out the pack. Like I said, I think they'll start quite slow. And it's interesting, despite how many players they've got.
It was Gus Hiddink.
It was?
Steve
in
Holland.
16? 15, 16?
Yeah, June 16.
Yeah?
Steve
Did he do it twice, Hiddink?
Nah, he only did it once.
Win the cup?
Sorry?
That feels like Gus Hiddink did that much earlier.
Okay. So, we are going back to... Jose Mourinho left December 15. You had Steve Holland, who managed for one whole game.
Yeah.
Gus Hiddink did 27
It was
games.
Gus Hiddink. It feels like it's far longer
December
than that.
to June, 15, 16.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I think the Chelsea was getting itself into order towards the end of that season. It's really going to take him some time to work out who he wants there and who he doesn't, I think. We think that was Ruben Loftus-Cheek's last game for the club.
1 win in 11.
Yeah, it's staggering, mate.
8 defeats. What's the point?
What's the point in Chelsea, yeah. That was clear goodbyes from Loftus-Cheek, so he's one that's definitely going out the door. I mean, unless they've got really good fixtures start next season and the pricing of their players dips massively, it's difficult to think where the interest would be at this moment. They would definitely be better under Pochettino, but I do think it will take some time. For Newcastle, it's certainly going to be difficult to match what they've done this year. Again, it falls into the line of not being as a club in the position where you're commonly used to playing twice a week, right? Which is what Newcastle are going to do. And demands of Champions League are obviously massive. You never play a rotated team in that, do you, for example? And I think Newcastle have got themselves over the line a little bit with a consciousness recently where, the last couple without Joel Linton and Willock, suddenly you look at that midfield at the weekend. And I do think Elliot Anderson would be a very good prospect, but you're looking for, that's a bit light in there all of a sudden. And I feel like it only takes a little bit like what I said with Villa. It'll only take a few injuries and you start looking at that and going, well, yeah, you need to do something with the depth.
Reinforce this summer.
No, it's not to underplay what they've done this year at all, and of course they are. They absolutely are. But I think if Newcastle would finish fourth again next year, that would be a huge achievement. When City got in for the first time, it felt like it was just constant progression, and it was like title, second, whatever. Newcastle have done it so early and so quickly, they might have to take the one step backwards for the two forward.
Yeah, and look at the league table. They finished 4 points ahead of Liverpool. And Liverpool had a shite season, let's be honest. So it's not going to take much for Liverpool to catch up that difference. And you'd think that Chelsea will probably be closer as well next season. So it will be hard to stay in the Champions League again next season.
If Newcastle
but it depends what business
If Newcastle
they do.
hit the same points total that they did this season, they'll probably finish top four again. And that's what you got to focus your minds and go, that's, I look at 76 would definitely get you in. 72 is nearly always enough. Anything above 70 would normally get you in. So 71's a really good return. They've not done it with a low points total. That's a points total that would, I'm sure that's exactly what Tottenham finished on last year, I think 70 or 71. That's normally going to get you in. And if Newcastle repeat that, they'll do so. It's very much about will the others improve around them. But I think it will be a challenge for Newcastle to repeat that points total. That's my point. Just that extra challenge of the Champions League, the playing twice of the week. Consider the intensity with which they play with. Yep. You start putting in, all right, you've got Barcelona Wednesday and stuff like that. And there'll be a low seeded. They'll go into pot 3 or 4. Might even be pot 4. So they're liable to have a difficult Champions League draw. They're certainly going to have at least one giant in there with them. And they're probably not going to have a team where you say, right, this is the Champions League fixture, we can rotate. That's probably not going to exist for Newcastle because their coefficient will be really low. But yeah, great season, brilliant achievement. Eddie Howe's absolutely another name that certainly deserves recognition in terms of potential manager of the year candidate. Kieran Trippier somehow managed to finish at under 200 FPL points in the end when he looked like an absolute shoo-in at one stage to arguably even break the all-time top FPL defender points record. He's going to get a big hike, isn't he? How big does his price go next year?
6. Just because of the second half of the season. I don't think he's in the league of Robertson 6.5 or Trent 7. So 6. Worst case 6.5, but I think 6. I don't think he'll be.
It's not going to be at 7s, no.
No, 6.
6 or 6.5, yeah. I'm trying to think of Tottenham players recently. I feel like we'd had a few in recent years who'd gone up to sort of 6s and so when we'd finished 4th. Not this year, but we had done in the past. I'm not sure. It's got to, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
He can't go in at sort of 5.5, can he?
That'd be too cheap.
Yeah, he agreed.
Palace 1, Forest 1. Again, two teams that knew that. I thought Palace would win this quite comfortably, but Awoniyi has kept banging in the goals. 6 in the last 4 games of the season. It's decent.
Yeah, and it's another one subject
to
what they do in the transfer market. And if they have good fixtures at the start, he might be one who... he's not going to suddenly be 7 million, is he? He's going to be cheap as again. It's only the little bit at the end. He'll get some attention. I think Morgan Gibbs-White has had a really good end to the season. Has really stepped up for Forest.
17 attacking returns. It's decent.
For
Morgan Gibbs-White.
17, did you say?
Well, 5 goals, 12 assists. So 17 attacking returns.
I think they only scored about 34, 35, I want to say. So that's good.
50% goal involvement. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they don't get enough to make you think, oh, yeah, great. I think... really interesting for Forest and Bournemouth quite a bit as well. That congratulations to Luton, obviously on coming up. But I think it's fair to say that Luton and our new Luton correspondent Dan Ashby is going to be on the pod with me tomorrow. But I'm pretty sure I know Dan's going to think this is going to be quite difficult to stay up. They'll obviously be capable and they're going to play a style of football which will give teams some problems in our league. But I think when I spoke to Tomo a couple of weeks ago, there was a realisation this would be much tougher for Sheffield United than almost it was when everyone was underestimating them when they come up with Chris Wilder. That actually there's potentially some financial restrictions. We know the takeover hasn't gone through. The quality of the team needs improving significantly. Burnley, we think, will be fine. Sheffield United and Luton is going to be really difficult. I'd say we know Burnley will be fine. We think they'll be fine. Sheffield United and Luton is going to be really tough, I think, to stay up. Agreed. And for the likes of Forest and Bournemouth, who I think we'd probably look at and go, yeah, possibly trouble again, then I almost feel like it's good news. Like the competitiveness of those teams in the Championship. The 3 teams have gone down. Nobody would have picked that 3.
No.
Leeds, Leicester, Southampton together. That's a decent set of 3 clubs who have gone down. On top of there are some Giants still win the championship. You know,
Middlesbrough will be
Sunderland
upset, they
have
didn't make
got
it.
themselves
Sunderland
into
pushed close.
contention this year. You got your Watfords, your Norwiches, your West Broms, etc., who weren't even in the top 6 this year and will want to do better. It's going to be really competitive to get out the championship next year. I feel like there might be a little bit of a split next year in the Premier League between sort of almost like it has happened where there was, until Palace had Hodgson come in, there was a real split between the top 11 and the bottom 9, which Chelsea's form levelled out and it closed in. But it was a real split, wasn't there? I wonder if there might be again, will we get a real split next year at some point between sort of like a top 12 or 13 and the rest are quite a bit behind. But I think Forest now, I think, have got the real chance to progress. We know they want to do business again because they can't help themselves. And I think lessons will have been learnt this year in terms of mistakes they've made in the market, because we've all taken the piss out of the amount of players
Jesse
they've
Lingard.
bought. But actually, and one of the ones a lot of people couldn't believe was Morgan Gibbs-White and the value they played for him. He'd be on the verge of the England squad soon, I think. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the bigger clubs start looking at him quite soon, actually. That, I think, him has been the biggest differential between them probably staying up and not, because he's got that little bit of X factor about him. And he'll be certainly an interesting one from an FPL perspective. Their fixtures are good at the start of next season. I presume Dean Henderson will probably get bought permanently. We haven't seen for a number of months. Yep. That's what Mark Summers had suggested to us previously. They need to get themselves settled on something more familiar. When they've had good little spells, a little bit like recently, they've had a more settled vibe to their team. When Cooper's been chopping and changing it, it's been a mess. Certainly individually, they need better individuals defensively as well. For Palace...
Well, it depends on who's the manager.
Well,
it's not going to be Roy.
I'm not sure.
Well, he said he's not going to...
Did you not see his interview?
Well, he said he was not going to manage.
No, he said, I can't accept a job I haven't been offered.
Oh, okay.
He was basically saying, offer it to me, and I'll take it. He'd take it. If they said to him, do us another year, Roy, he'll do it.
You reckon?
Yeah. It's like a drug to him. I don't think he can say no, and he loves the club, and they love him as well. But I do think, like, what Hodgson's done great is he's stabilised it, right? He's got them comfortably clear. Players like Eze and Elise playing with more expression and freedom. I think they really, now is the time, rather than waste another year, they need to go back in and go back into the principal idea of what a Patrick Vieira was going to be for Palace and try and progress this. Because this team on its day is capable of giving anybody trouble. And they're capable of pushing towards that top half finish. Palace, considering what I've just said, Palace, for me, really shouldn't be in trouble next year, even if they lose like Wilf Zaha. It shouldn't be in that position. They should be in a position where they're pushing for 10th or so, and I think they're capable. I think, personally, giving Hodgson another year, sure, they won't be in trouble, but I just think you're just delaying the path that you're going on anyway. Unless they identified and the manager they wanted was someone they could definitely get next summer but couldn't get now, then fine. Otherwise, I think they should make a new appointment.
Agreed. Everton 1, Bournemouth 0. Sean Dyche will definitely be there next season.
Sean Dyche is the reason that Everton have stayed up.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely certain of that.
I think if you said to me who's going to struggle out of these two next season, I'd say same again. Everton again are going to find it difficult. They're going to have to sell a few players probably to balance the books, you'd think. I
thought Sean Dyche did an interview after the game. It wasn't one of the TV ones. It was in his presser. It was a brilliant interview. It said like he's got an understanding of what Everton fans want to see from their team, but also talking very openly and accepting where they're at as a football club right now. It's exactly what we said. Everton fans don't necessarily want to be watching Sean Dyche brand of football, etc. But Sean Dyche is the best bet for Everton to get through these next few years and stay above water, because I'd look at them and say, if Sean Dyche manager next year, they probably won't get relegated. But they'll still be in trouble again.
Yeah.
Because quality is there not good enough, and I don't think they can particularly add to it. And those little bits that they do have, like, Pickford's another name who might well get looked at this summer. He did sign a new contract, so I don't think there's any reason to think that he would leave this year. But Yerry Mina, who obviously played at the Wheaton's, out of contract. Everton certainly aren't. Even if they do offer him a new deal, it's going to be nowhere near the terms that he wants. So he's presumably going to go. And there might be one or two others go as well. There's not enough goals in that team. There's no reliability on DCL, unfortunately, to stay fit. It was an important win. I think we all thought they'd do it, didn't we?
Yeah, I was fairly comfortable. Even when Leicester were up and it was 0-0, I thought Everton are going to win that game, so this might not matter.
Think Everton fans were more worried for Everton this weekend than everybody else was, I think, which is perfectly understandable when you're in a circumstance. Like Neil Grover had said on our Slack, our Bournemouth correspondent afterwards, he didn't really want to bet against Bournemouth on Clash of Correspondents last week. But he admitted what I'd said on that podcast was that actually Bournemouth was probably the ideal fixture that Everton could have. They only ended up having one shot on target at the end, which was a decent Jordan Pickford save from Matthias Fina. But they weren't under huge duress. Probably their biggest duress was the moment when the 10 minutes added on went up. You shit yourself then with 10 minutes. There's a lot can happen over that period. But relatively safe. Doucouré got the key goal and the key moment. They played a back three, which I don't know if people still did gamble on Dwight McNeil, but I think if anybody did get Everton team leaks, I don't suppose that was going around, then you'd have been massively put off by seeing Connor Cody in with Mina and Tarkowski, because you know at that point it's a back three. James Garner played right wing back apparently. Didn't know he was capable of that. They've managed to muddle through with essentially no fullbacks at the end of the season as well, right? No Mikolenko, no Coleman, no Patterson. They found a system. It's not ideal, I think, really, for Sean Dyche teams to be playing a back three, but that's what they've done.
Yeah.
And essentially that victory at Brighton was the key victory. And I think the manner of it as well give Everton fans and the players self-belief in terms of what they were trying to do. So well done to them for staying up. And well done for Bournemouth, because nearly all of us would have written them off at one stage or another, right?
Agreed.
Think back to Scott Parker's comments after the defeat at Liverpool about these players can't play at this level. And they've done it, right? And they're safe.
Yeah.
One of the things Neil was keen to stress last week was they're experimenting ahead of next season. I do think, in all seriousness, they'll be near danger as well, but they'll go and invest again, and that's a positive place at the moment with the new ownership.
Yeah, Leeds 1, Spurs 4. Another club that needs a new manager is Spurs, because we know now from the end of last week that Arne Slot isn't going to be coming. Maybe Ryan Mason will get the job full time now after that victory. Leeds, you worry for a little bit, you know. I think they're going to go down.
I'm not massively worried for them, actually.
And I don't think they're going to bounce straight back up. Do you think they're going to bounce straight back up?
Yeah, I think there's every chance, actually. I mean, those three that have gone down, I think there's certain clubs we've looked at. To be honest, we'd said about Burnley, I'm worried for them this time last year. I'm not actually that worried for Leeds, Leicester or Southampton. I think they'll all be near the top end of it.
Do you think that people will be shopping at Leeds, like trying to pick up a Bamford, Harrison, Rodrigo?
I mean, the thing with Rodrigo's,
Tyler Adams.
what, 32 or so.
So less so.
Bamford's injury prone,
but don't want to take a risk on that.
These guys would, if they do end up playing in a championship, will certainly score goals when they play, no doubt about it. Jack Harrison, we know there was interest, ironically, from Leicester in January. Yeah. I think he'll certainly get looked at.
Tyler Adams
is a player I really like. I'd be very surprised if he stayed. Not because I think he wants to leave Leeds particularly, but I just think
40 million for him.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think they could get a good fee for him. I think I'd rather buy Tyler Adams than every single rostered Leeds defender put together. I think absolutely woeful defensively, and that's what's cost them. When we saw the team, and as I said, we was travelling with FPL Rhinos, me and my dad, on the way to the game. Saw the Leeds team, and I was mad confused. I was like, what's he done here with all these centre backs? And I couldn't make it out. And Rhino said, we play Cock in midfield. So of course, Cock's been playing in midfield. Hang on, there's still an extra centre-back in there. So he's picked Christensen, Cooper, Voba, Ayling, Cock, Strauch. And all of them have played centre-back for Leeds this season. 6 players there who have across this season played centre-back for Leeds.
Always right back more often than not.
Yeah, but he can cover at centre-back, and he has played that position as well. Christensen's right back has been playing centre back quite a lot. The irony is that, they basically played a back 5 with Cock in midfield with Forshaw. I mean, it's so negative. McKennie is 1 or 2, with being Harrison behind Rodrigo. On the bench, you've got these young, vibrant kids, and he brings Nonto on with 2 minutes to go. You got to win the game.
What happened to
They might have been in a
Nonto
position.
as well?
They might have been in a position where they had to win by 3, as we discussed, right?
It was somewhere between 30 and 40 million euros. Rutter all in. and hasn't seen any minutes. I heard on the radio someone was speculating that they weren't playing him because if they did, they'd have to pay more money.
Is that right?
It's rumours, but...
Well, he came on and assisted the goal, but...
Yeah, for half an hour, but where's he been in the weeks leading up to it? Like, if you've bought him in January as a striker...
It wasn't a signing that they needed.
What?
I think it was like a panic around Bamford's fitness and Rodrigo's, and there was a panic. And listen, I did quite a bit of research into Jorginho Ruud, so I did talking tactics on him, and I think there's a very talented player there potentially, but it wasn't what Leeds needed. You got them bright kids already. Some are injured at the moment. Sinistera, for example. You got Somerville, Nonso. Attacking players ain't actually a huge problem for Leeds. It's defensively. Didn't spend the money appropriately, and the vibe of atmosphere in that stadium. Wow.
Bad.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that security operation to keep them off the pitch, the Leeds fans to our right, they were insistent they were going to try and do it. They were singing all through the second half, like we're on the pitch when we go down. But they did stop it, and there was definite aggro. Some of the abuse some of the players got. McKennie got it really bad. Really, really bad. I don't understand the positioning that he played in the game. I don't understand the selection of Sam Allardyce. So negative. Like, we're weak, man. You knew on Friday Davinson Sanchez was going to play for us. Like, put us under pressure. They've walked around with a cigar during the game. And do you know what? They had a number of shots. 19 shots lead. I think it's 2 on target. Never overly a threat. And every time we attacked, which was rare, like, we didn't play that well, to be totally honest. We looked like, every time we went forward, we looked like we were going to score. They were there to be absolutely destroyed on the counter. And it was the right tactical setup to draw them on. Because on the break... just completely non-existent. So there's, unfortunately for Leeds, there's a disconnect now with what they had, right? They're very proud of their identity with Marcelo Bielsa. That went with Jesse Marsch. There's no point repeating old ground that I think they'd have been better off keeping him. But the disconnect between fans and management and players was beginning to go during that Marsch period. And is now a real low. And it's going to need someone to come in with a big personality to fix that and get it back to a brand of football that Leeds fans become accustomed to. You can't find another Marcelo Bielsa, though. Like, it doesn't exist. I wouldn't be surprised if they go back for him.
Wow. Watch this space. Spurs, we obviously know no new manager.
But he took the Uruguay job, didn't he?
Did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's not happening.
No, he's not going
Sorry,
back.
Leeds fans, if I just gave you a moment of hope there.
Who knows who's going to be Spurs' manager?
No, I don't.
And I think
it won't be Marcelo Bielsa, and it won't be Ryan Mason, and it won't be Jesse. It might be Jesse Marsch.
Everything to do with Spurs is so dependent on what happens with the manager. Like,
yeah, look, I'm tired of looking at it, to be honest. It just got to the point sort of last Wednesday-ish where you thought, okay, it's going to be Slot. And then it turns out by Thursday morning, it was like, nah, Slot had told Feyenoord on Monday night that he was staying. And
yeah.
It's boring. Tottenham have got to get it sorted, right? Chelsea have obviously known for a number of weeks. It was Pochettino. As soon as the season finishes, bang, Pochettino's new manager. Tottenham have got to get this sorted out very, very quickly. For the benefit of the fans. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some mad names getting mentioned, some big names in the next week, because there's some season ticket renewals to deal with for a lot of people, Suj, you know. So the football club needs a good vibe story very, very quickly. I have no idea who's going to get the job. Postecoglou at Celtic's being the main one being mentioned. And I'd say in terms of names being linked, it's been a quiet weekend, and it is worth saying Celtic have still got a Scottish Cup final to go. So I hear very good things about him. But let's see afterwards. If it's Postecoglou, like, I'm fine. Let's crack on. Let's have a look at it. It's just boring. It's boring. I had this for 3 months 2 years ago, and I've now had it for nearly 3 months this year as well. It's boring. Just we need an identity. We need to know where we're going. It's going to be very, very difficult for Tottenham to get towards top 4 next year. You couldn't look at that team at the moment and think it's got a prayer of finishing top 4, despite having this unbelievable forward up front who, I sit quite high up at Tottenham, where I've got a good overall perspective of sort of row 6 on Sunday, so very low. So in terms of tactical setup, it's very difficult to get a flavour of what's happening off the ball and stuff. But the one thing you do get at that level is a real appreciation of players and their speed of thought and mind, and he was just sensational. He was worth turning up and watching by himself. Absolutely brilliant performance. 2 goals, assists, top bonus in FPL. making many an FPL manager happy. Yes, Harry Kane did win a lot of mini leagues for many of you, I'm sure. I think he'll stay. I've said that a number of times, just purely because I don't think Tottenham can sell. Unless a super money offer comes in. I just cannot foresee how Tottenham take like an 80 million as being mentioned and stuff like that. I think if the money gets eye-watering, i.e. the sort of stuff that City should have offered 2 years ago, then sure, I think Tottenham have to entertain it. But I think Tottenham will take the risk that he goes on a free transfer, personally.
I'm not so convinced. I think they'll take the money. But it all depends on who will come in.
You have to understand that, I mean, literally at Ellen Road, there was a point towards the end of the game, we got 40,000 fans singing "Sack the Board." It was both ends, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I joined in with that one because, a lot of them do need sacking at the board.
See, rumours are obviously Munich and Man United are the two potential destinations. But
Real Madrid's name's coming up the last few days as well, quite a bit. And I'm sure there's a lure in that, but I just think he's so driven to take that Shearer record. It feels like the most important thing to him. And his best chance of doing it is at Tottenham because, look, he scored 30 goals this season in a team that's been absolutely terrible, really.
Agreed.
What a season he's had. A few notes, a few things on Tottenham. New goalkeepers a must. New centre-backs a must. New central midfielders a must. New midfielders obviously a must. We do think the Kulusevski deal probably will still happen. There's not too much doubt about that. But yeah, team needs massive, massive improvement. What a moment that was at the end with the Lucas Moura goal. Pile on. Honestly, you would have thought. I think it's the most mad I've seen the weigh-in go since I was in Amsterdam.
Fair play.
They went mental. Honestly, car crash of bodies everywhere for a goal that just didn't matter, just because it was just living in that moment going, what a great ending that is.
Leicester 2, West Ham 1. Not a great ending for Leicester. West Ham didn't rotate as much as you'd think, but Bowen got a bit of a rest. Souček got a bit of a rest.
I didn't think he'd rotate at all.
No.
To be honest. I just thought Zuma wouldn't play, that was all.
Yeah. And in the end, I think we were quite easy opponents for Leicester. I think going forward, we didn't really threaten that much. But they played reasonably well. Didn't create a huge amount of chances, but they played reasonably well, did Leicester. And the first goal was really nice. Ironically, all week, a lot of the fan channels for West Ham had heard a lot about 50 million Harvey Barnes bid going in. And it's like, well, if he scores the goal that keeps Leicester up, which means that we don't actually make that transfer, how ironic that would be. Although now I hear that he might be going to Aston Villa on a cut price deal, Harvey Barnes. So let's see. But yeah, from the set piece goal for Wout-Faes, which is just average defending, it was shortly after that Everton had scored, and then it was dead, dull, and just felt awful. And we created a few chances and could have done better. Danny Ings wasn't on it. Missed a few chances where he should have hit the target and done better, to be honest with you. Which probably goes to show not playing enough is a bit rusty. But everybody's eyes are on something else next week for us. And we weren't terrible, but we were quite easy, and you could tell that eyes were elsewhere. Leicester did what they had to do, but it was so flat in the end, unfortunately. Maddison, Barnes, Tielemans, Iheanacho, all going to be out the door, you'd think.
Maddison, a certainty. Tielemans had out of contract, certainty. Barnes will get interest. Iheanacho will get interest. I'm not sure where Leicester would put Iheanacho at value, but I mean it would do great for I vision him up front for like a Palace, for example, or Forest. So that won't go down with Leicester fans. Sorry, and do a really good job for someone like that, and get the goals. Those two clubs are two that just come to mind. I think, you could do with that number 9 that will definitely get you sort of that 12 to 15 goals.
I think he'd do all right in the pretenders, like a West Ham, Villa, Brighton maybe. I don't know, any of these teams. I think he could do all right.
I'm sure there'll be interest. There'll be more interest in their attacking players than their defensive players. And
sure.
I think,
but even Castagne, he's decent. Pereira can't stay fit, so maybe less so.
Yeah, I mean, Castagne's full international Belgian, so we'll get some interest. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if Wout-Faes got some interest. I think they'll remodel the team, and they probably need to make it round the core. The people like Dewsbury Hall, who cares for the club, as a young player and stuff.
I bumped into a couple of Luton fans on the train on Saturday. They were going down to the thing, and they were like, "If Leicester go down, we wouldn't mind James Justin back because he was there." And
great talent, got himself in the England squad. Just had a terrible injury.
They spoke really highly of him when they had James Justin. So maybe he'll get interest as well.
I think we discussed that on the Money in Football we did a couple of weeks ago, that there might even be a few with Leicester where they go, take this player's wages for a year.
Yeah.
You know, and we'll take back if we get promotion and stuff like that. I think Leicester feel like there's a number there on big salaries. And they'll have to be cautious, it's worth saying, with them from the FFP perspective. But I do think, I mean, Jesus, if you sold Maddison and Barnes, you're certainly upwards of 100 million for the two, aren't you? At a minimum.
Yeah.
So the money's going to come into the football club. They obviously get the parachute payments and stuff. I don't have huge concern for Leicester, and I would imagine they'd be probably the strongest favourites to come straight back. But they've obviously got to get the managerial appointment right. Dean Smith wasn't it. I don't think he endeared himself to Leicester fans for the short period that he was there. We spoke about the very strange comments he made prior to the Newcastle game. And I guess we can all do the hindsight thing now and go, why didn't they try and win at Newcastle? Well, do you know what? It nearly worked. One long-range strike from Abdullah Doucouré that would have stayed up. So I didn't necessarily agree with it, but I understood the idea of trying to get something at Newcastle. And it was their best chance of trying to do something. 19 home points they've got this year, Suj. Point per game for a Leicester City at home. A side that would have had aspirations to qualify for Europe. And what's remarkable about it is what we said a couple of times. They had two spells where you felt like it clicked. Just before the World Cup, they had 4 clean sheets in 4 wins. The only goal they conceded was to Kevin De Bruyne over that period. And then they had this bad period after the World Cup, and then they got 8 against Tottenham and Villa in consecutive weeks. It's remarkable, really. They absolutely shouldn't have gone down. The idea of too good to go down, though, no, like defensively, absolutely awful. And even in the Championship, they need a new goalkeeper.
Let's move on, James, to Manchester United, Fulham. That clean sheet wipeout pretty early on wasn't nice. But then David De Gea did save a penalty for my Sky fantasy game, which helped. 2-1 in the end for Manchester United. They'll be happy finishing third. If you said at the start of the season, and not even start of the season, few games into the season, you'll be third and you'll win a trophy and you'll be in the cup final. They'd all take that, mate. They'd all take that.
Yeah, it's been a very decent first season for Eric Ten Hag
as well.
Yeah. I think Garnacho is certainly one to keep an eye on in terms of price towards the start of next year. Might well develop and become a regular in the team, but we certainly know that United are going to want to invest in certain parts of the team going forward. I shout out that Fred assist, by the way. What a pass that was for Bruno Fernandes' goal, didn't they? He had that in the locker. Marcus Rashford would have been one in most of our teams at the weekend with a blank. Those with Bruno have probably had a good week. I think all the teams I've seen that have had really good weeks, sort of up towards the 70-ish, seem to have all had Kane captain, also seem to all have Bruno Fernandes as well. So he's done really well for quite a few people over the last couple.
Points in the season. It's not too bad for Bruno.
Yeah, I think at his value, you want to be pushing among 200
sure.
We've gone from a player, you must remember, in the COVID season, what did he get, 240 or so? It was kind of regular. It was like most weeks it was for a little while. It was him or Salah for captaincy, wasn't it? For a number of weeks, for quite a while. And he's just, other than sort of in doubles and stuff, it's not really stood up as an option. That's partly because of Marcus Rashford's performances as well. You'd be interested to see what United do in the summer. Priority is certainly a number 9 or a forward type, or even if they're going to decide that Rashford is going to be that player. But I think they're better off having Rashford from the left now, and I get the sense that's where he wants to play as well. Yeah, it's a good season for United. I think if you go back 9 months, it's probably as good as United fans could have probably imagined it would be, particularly if you reflect on the performance of Brentford in game week 2. You'd have gone, Jesus, like how bad could this be? So they've recovered very well. Defensively, very strong, particularly at home. It must fix, obviously, their away form next year. Fulham are not a team I envisage having seasons in terms of second season syndrome. They might do, but you'd look at them and think, how many clubs would be interested in taking Mitrovic this year for sort of value that Fulham would deem acceptable. So he highly likely stays. And if he keeps himself fit, he scores goals, doesn't he? Can't take a penalty. It's 4 he's missed this season. Yeah. And actually, having a penalty saved by David De Gea, as we know, is the ultimate sin. But he'll score more than enough goals from... Paulinho's a very good player we speak a lot on the Sky podcast. I think they've coped quite well recently with the injuries to Tim Ream and Pereira. I think psychologically that's important for them going into next season. So, yeah, while Mitrovic is fit, there's no way they're in trouble next year. It's proven at this level we've scored goals.
Last but not least, there's always one car crash game on the final
This was
day.
it.
I didn't think it would be this one, though. Especially, when Saints were winning as well. I was like, what's going on here? But
although
4-4.
even in the car crash, it was difficult to find the returns. It's Jota, really, who's the one that's got the haul.
Diaz was the one that you were looking at as maybe the one to go to.
He was the one earlier in the week, yeah, but... there was plenty of leaks of what we thought the Liverpool team was going to be. So, once Klopp had made his comments on Friday, and I know Diaz had started the last couple, he was completely off radar for me in any case. Firmino did start, get his goals, obviously had a wonderful career at Liverpool. I guess the Salah and Trent returns are pretty disappointing, really, aren't they? The 1 assist for each. I thought Kelleher should have done much better on a few of them goals, and he's been linked with a number of Premier League clubs. Interestingly, I'm not convinced by him, I have to say. I know Liverpool fans think quite a lot of him, but I do have concerns about him. And I think that showed on some of those goals that they conceded at the weekend. But I wouldn't be surprised if he starts next season as a Premier League number 1, actually, Suj. And he was priced, so he would have been 4 million, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Subject to where he goes. He might still be an interesting one. At 4.5, it's obviously not going to go to Brentford now because they've sorted the alternative replacement. But there are a number of Premier League clubs looking at him. I don't see him swapping, like he's been linked with my club. I don't see him as number 1 yet. And I don't suppose he'd leave Liverpool as number 2 to go to Tottenham as number 2. It doesn't make sense. He's going to want to be a number 1 in his own right. I think for Southampton, we like Sulemana. I said that when I went there. He only played the last 15 minutes against us, and they were so much livelier when he come on the pitch. These were his first goals. If he stays at Southampton, I think he'll do really well there in the Championship next year, actually. And I'm not sure Southampton will get the money they want to recoup for him. Really rare error from Romeo Lavia on Jota's first goal. Terrible blind pass. He's had a great season. There'll be a lot of interest in him, as there'll be James Ward-Prowse, who I think is probably looking at a club below the European contenders, which at the moment, until you win the final, Suj, I'm not going to put you in that bracket, but that feels like a Declan Rice solution that would potentially make a lot of sense. I've said Cole Walker-Peters, I think for his versatility, he'll really get looked at as well. But they're another one, the core of their team might stay together. We think Russell Martin's going to do the job. He's obviously very experienced at that level. Is that official, is it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, it's announced. He's officially taken over.
I think they'll be near the top end of it as well next year. As I said, I think all 3 of those teams have gone down. I don't see any of them being in a position where they're going to, I'm not going to say relegated from the Championship, but even be in trouble. I think all 3 teams come down will finish top 6 in the Championship next year.
Oof, that's quite a bold statement. I can see Leicester and Southampton. I'm not so convinced on Leeds.
No, I think Leeds will.
But I can't say I know that much about the Championship and the competitive nature of it, though. So it's a very difficult.
It is a little bit dependent on getting the managerial appointment right for Leeds, it's worth saying. That similar applies to Leicester, but I feel there's more of a core there with Leeds. That Leeds' defence has been a Championship defence in the Premier League for the last few years, and was originally hidden by the sheer work ethic, a man-to-man off-the-ball play that Bielsa's Leeds did. It's been completely unmasked and found out since he's gone. It's been bad, and that Leeds defence won't be one of the best defences in the Championship next year. I would say that.
Cool, James. That's a wrap on the games that we've had. I know you put a tweet out asking for some questions, and you did say, "Can we have some fun ones?" I don't think people listen to you.
Oh, really?
There's a few, but I'm not going to be asking any questions like who's the best asset from each club for the season. Just sort by points.
Well, no, you can. You can sort that by value, but very often you'll find the answer to that as a goalkeeper. Unfortunately,
reviewing stuff like that's not it. There are a few that we are going to get into. What's the plan the rest of the week? It's a 4-day week here in England. and Wales and Scotland maybe with a public holiday. So we're already on Tuesday.
Oh, content, you mean?
Yeah, you've got Dan Ashby tomorrow.
So Dan
talking
Ashby's
about
our new
the Hatters.
Luton correspondent. He's going to be joining me tomorrow. Thursday's Gameweek 39 preview. Benny Blanco and David Mundy are going to be on opposite sides on the pitch for that charity game on Saturday. Please donate. It's really important. There's a target to raise as much as we did last year, which I think was £6,606.
Yeah.
You can turn up. Tickets are £5, I want to say. But you can buy virtual tickets. You can donate however you want. Yeah. You know, there are so many great FPL content creators are giving up their time. We're going to film the game as we did last year. So it'll be available on our channel probably sort of midweekish or so next week, depending on how quickly Nico's skills are this week or next week even. So we'll be covering that as well. If anybody can offer donations, I'll put the link in the bio for this as well. And obviously we'll talk about that more on Thursday's pod. Got one more clash of correspondence for you. Man City, Man United on Friday. First time the boys are going to be doing that together. Johnny Pringle and Gary Robinson ahead of obviously the FA Cup final on Saturday. Our Patreon content this week, Suj, is Q&A today, Tottenham tomorrow. I'm going to do an Ask James stream on Thursday. And our final differential show on Friday, which will be an overview of that show this season. And I think we'll do one more main pod reflecting on this season next week, Suj. We'll look more at some of the analytical of our own seasons, the good and the bad, I think.
Yes, indeed. And we can get into some of the questions around like players specifically then. I'm going to pull up some questions that we've had in on Twitter, James.
Go on. Stuff we haven't covered.
David Hunter.
Yeah.
Would you rather be called Robin Koch or Dennis Pratt? Robin Koch all day long.
I think so, yeah.
Because you lean into it, don't you? You know, like some people have surnames that are cool and you can lean into it. So,
although
Robin the Koch.
When you introduce yourself and you go, I'm Robin Koch. I mean, I'm Dennis Pratt. Yeah, I'm going Dennis Pratt.
Nah.
Yeah, no, I'm going Dennis Pratt, yeah.
You can't say cock by name, cock by nature, can you? Doesn't work. But you could lean into... I'm just trying to find a way that you could lean into it.
The name's Koch. Robin Koch. No, I'm going Dennis Pratt, mate.
Pratt doesn't work much better. Pratt doesn't work much better. Dennis, I think I'd take Robin Koch. I prefer Robin to Dennis.
All right, you be Robin, I'll be Dennis. There you go.
All right, Den. Nah, I think I'd rather be Rob.
You are also the Robin to my Batman anyway.
Robin. So. You want to be Batman now? Who asked
what do you mean now?
Question? Where are we? It was a question about our correspondence.
Oh, God.
Dinner party. Clash of the Correspondents dinner party, but we're only allowed to invite 3.
Oh, God.
Which 3 would you invite?
Ricky's got to be one.
Yeah.
Got to have Ricky.
When's his stag do? When's his stag do? Ricky, when's his stag do?
Ricky, good luck for the wedding, mate.
I just want to know when the stag do is.
I can't believe any woman wants to marry him. But anyway, good luck, Ricky.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Ricky's getting married. Nico's shocked.
Jesus. Oh, God.
Only of them particularly good cooks. I'm trying to think now.
I've no idea. Yeah, that's a good shout, actually. Nico's just gone. We have Southerns there, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
We'd have to, probably.
Yeah. Just he's got probably he's OGs. He's got stories from back in the day pre-FPL, so we would probably have him.
And I'm going to say Sam Murray. So we can talk about the Serbian.
Just trying to drag the average age down, basically.
Yeah, and that,
the youngest one of them all. Sam would definitely be a good shout. I think any of them, though, would be good. Talking about correspondence, General Zod wants to know if Sean at Spirit_Blues, our Everton correspondent, still thinks they're getting relegated.
Probably. Shout out, Sean. Well done.
Difficult season.
Sean has been in touch and said you must try and get the Goodison for their last year next year and have a drink. And I will make every attempt to try and get up to Goodison Park next year. Although my missus has been saying, you ain't going to as many away games next year. And, you know, you got more responsibilities now. It's like, this is the problem of not getting in the Conference League, right? So next year is better, right? Because I ain't got no Thursday night football or nothing. But then if we get back in next year and you potentially put in like another 14, 15 dates on the calendar, she's going to be like, what are you doing? Don't think you can do that anymore. So, divorce incoming, possibly. Sean probably does think Everton will still get relegated. He'd probably tell us in August we'll get relegated again, probably.
Chris Few, no, it is my Cayman fan, Matt, says, what were the overall ranks for Manchild and Nico?
Oh, my God.
So, Nico
had logged in for forever.
You beat Manchild.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
I think
your
Nico
overall rank was 8.8 million.
I think Nico said Tony bus captain for forever.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah. Manchild was worse. He was 9.4 million. Here's this for a laugh, James. You ready for this? This is Manchild's 11 on the last day of the season. Mendy in goal. Obviously had Alisson as his actual goalkeeper. Luca Dean, Joel Veltman, Rob Holding. What a defence.
He's got cock, hasn't he?
Perisic and Vestergaard.
He's not got cock.
No,
Surprise.
I've been injured. Sarr, Spurs, Sarr, Papamao Sarr, Mo Salah, captain, fine. Bukayo Saka, Jadon Sancho, Raheem Sterling. He liked Sterling and Muniz from Watford for his cash monies.
Yeah.
Haaland as vice and Kiefer Moore.
Kiefer Moore
as his forwards.
Who's his other forward? That's only two.
Muniz.
Muniz.
Muniz. Was it Muniz?
Oh, at Fulham.
Yeah. Cash monies.
Okay. Did he have Matty Cash?
No, he didn't.
Why has he got Luca Dean? He's so random, mate.
Nico Semedo's. I bet if I asked Nico to name his 15-man squad, he wouldn't be able to right now. But trust me,
I know it's Tony captain.
Listen, this is your team name needs to be renamed as Red Flag Central. Here's a list of just the red flags: Reece James, William Saliba, Andreas Pereira, Wilf Zaha, Ivan Toney, Danny Ward, Nico Williams, Cameron Archer. That's Nico's squad at the last of the season.
And did he outscore you this week?
No.
How many points?
Yeah, he did. 34. Why? Let's have a look. Sanchez. Am I right?
You've not got Davinson Sanchez, surely. As
No,
Robert Sanchez,
I'll tell
Brighton.
you why in a second. Because one player in his team basically outscored my team.
Yeah.
Sanchez in goal.
Yeah.
0.
Yeah, obviously.
Trippier. 0. Perisic. 0.
Yeah.
Reece James and Saliba. 0 and 0. Andreas Pereira, Wilf Zaha. 0, 0. Sonny. 5.
Yeah.
Salah. 5.
Yeah.
Ivan Toney. 0. Gabriel Jesus, vice captain, so got the armband from Tony, 24 points. He had 3 players this week.
He's
3 players. And you beat me. So well done. But yeah, that overall rank of 8.875
Nico, we need to play seriously next year.
We'll see. We'll see.
Talking of which, shout out, my man, because you've made my life quality much better over the last 15 months. So myself and the Planet FPL community would like to thank you. We'd like to thank Manchild for absolutely nothing, because he doesn't do anything other than be the outro on his podcast. Don't say it now, Suj. Shout out to everybody.
He is coming to Gameweek 39 to film it, though, so give him credit enough for that, Manchild.
Shout out to everybody who's guested and helped me on the podcast this year when Suj disappeared or gone on holiday or done work or whatever. Obviously, massive shout out to all the Planet FPL correspondents. Shout out to all of our patrons. Anybody who's liked, shared, retweeted. It's all hugely appreciated. Now's the time for those 5-star reviews and subs and likes, etc. As we'd already said, we're not quite finished yet. The content will continue till next Friday-ish. That's it, Suj. You got anyone you want to thank? I want to thank my wife.
Why?
For the jokes aside, still letting me go and watch Tottenham. I'd like to thank my son.
I love that there's the implication of permission there, which
like there's been a discussion.
Really
we had
happen.
a row the other day. Honestly, well, not a row, but she said you can't. As I said, she said you can't keep doing this next year. And I said I don't believe that I've ever gone anywhere without having your permission. Is what I said, and I'm thinking as soon as I said it, I'm thinking that's not true.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks to all the correspondents as well for all of their hard work and everybody that's gotten involved. It's been a fun season. Season's not over yet. still the small matter of a cup final for us next week. And yes, as James said, we're producing content till the end of next week. Patreon's a funny one. Patreon, if you want our content and back catalogue and something to do in June, I recommend signing up today or tomorrow, and you will get access to the full back catalogue. In June, Patreon is free, so no one will be able to join, but we'll be rejoining in June. They can join, but
you'll have to pay for
you'll have to pay for June. Whereas if you sign up now, June won't get charged for. It's kind of pretty much the same.
It's the same thing,
basically, yeah. July, obviously, we'll be kicking off, really ramping up the pre-season stuff. Correspondent week will be back, and all that kind of stuff.
The back catalogue includes everything we've released on this. So the podcast's available intermediate tier, so that includes the 10-part Goodbye to the Lane series I did last March, which was a diary format, which is narrated by me it's 10-parter from Tottenham's final season at the old White Hart Lane under Maurizio Pochettino, which is now way more difficult to listen back to. But certainly one for Tottenham fans I think might be interested in happier days. Although, as I said, with him taking Chelsea job, you might not want to hear it now. Yeah. But there's plenty of older stuff we've done, recent pods we've done, such as like Leicester and Everton. We've done investigations into them, money and football. They're kind of still relevant, really. For sure. And yeah, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And the Slack community will still be interacting all through the summer because we have other sports and people just chatting about transfers, rumours, all that kind of stuff as well. But breathe. Season's over from a Premier League point of view. Congratulations on making it to the end.
And we'll be back at you tomorrow. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Cue music, please, man, child. No point saying play it your way, is there?
Nah. Cool. So the rumour mill is Bayern Munich, 95 million for Declan Rice is what they've bid. 95 million. I think they'll take that.
Yeah, I saw some rumours last night that he'd spoke to Tuchel. He's good enough.
Yeah, but it's boring going to Bayern Munich.
I don't know, is it? Guaranteed league title, basically.
Yeah, but...
As long as Dortmund fuck it up.
Are you right getting these mics and stuff down? Do you want me to bring them down?
No, we'll deal with it, mate. What time do you want to do? There's no rush.
After lunch.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, so they're going to start recording, shooting in maybe about an hour or so.
All right.